All right, the live stream is starting. So if you go to my Facebook page, you can actually share it. I invite all of you that are on Facebook right now to go to my Evan Mulch Facebook page, my personal one, and share the live stream so that this gets out to as many people as possible. We're going to be starting here in about 6 minutes. Share the live stream so that this gets out to as many people as possible. We're going to be starting here in about 6 minutes. So welcome to the live stream.
Hey, buddy, how's it going? Can you
It's
hear
going
me?
great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man, and getting better.
Good.
How's the volume sound for you?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good deal. Let's see. Do I got trash?
Great.
Can you see trash back there? No trash. I got my flag. Got my 2020
There you go.
Trump. No to socialism hat. No socialist Democrats.
Okay, we got about 10 attendees. Everybody that's on Facebook, it should be live streaming right now. In fact, in the chat box, please let me know if you do see it live stream on Facebook. If you have a question, go ahead and get your question asked. Go to the Q&A section. If you want to make a donation to this event, when we have Birch or boosters, if you donate $25 or more, you get your name announced. When we announce your name, we do wave our flags. There you go, Zoe. You've already seen what goes on.
If you wonder why I look like the King of Spades, it's because
You look good.
McMaster has not opened up the barbershop
yet. Okay, so you have not. It looked like you did have a haircut, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you just have your hair short all the time. Yeah, my sideburns kind of go out a little bit once it starts getting too long over here.
Nice.
I'm going to post the PayPal link too, so everybody who wants to make a PayPal donation, you can do that. I do know we're live on YouTube. I don't know if we're live on Facebook though. Please comment in the chat section if you see this on my Facebook page. I'll be there in just a minute here, but I'm trying to get everybody the donation links. Okay, John just said he's on Zoom. Good. We want you on Zoom. We want you in this webinar. The only way you can really ask questions effectively is if you are in this webinar. So if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the Q&A section of this. For those listening, we're getting started in 3 minutes. Okay, 2 minutes to go, everybody. There it is. It's live on Facebook. We have 9 people watching. If you want to make a donation, $25, get your name announced as a Birch or booster during this. All proceeds are donated amongst our guest speakers. It's a good cause. It gives incentive for people to join these webinars, to talk about these things. When have you ever seen a webinar where it's asking Democrats to exit into the John Birch Society? Whoops. Okay, 1 minute to go. We're waiting on you, Lucretia. She's probably just finishing her other show right now. She's been doing shows since 5 o'clock. Okay, I put in the store on scespeakersbureau.org. That's the store you go to make a donation. Okay, I put that in the comment section of the Facebook page, and it's here in the chat section of our chat on this webinar. Okay, here. Okay, Lucretia's joining now. Let's get started with a prayer. You know, start us out, Zoe?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Zoe.
You are awesome. You are magnificent. There's no God but you, and there's no one like you. We thank you for another amazing day in your kingdom, just ministering to you, ministering to one another, loving on our neighbors, and loving on our God. We bless you, God, for this opportunity to speak truth, Lord. You're the repository of all wisdom and knowledge, everything that is of benefit and value, all the things that we need in life, they reside, exist in you. And so we go to you in order to pull out that treasure to everyone we meet, especially socialists, especially folks that are walking hand in hand with the thief. And so we thank you, Lord, for this program so that we can give ammunition, give firepower, give the word of wisdom, everything that people need to go wage good warfare and to do the work of the kingdom in the political realm, in the social realms, in their communities, at their homes, with their families, Lord, because we know that the devil doesn't stop at the poll booth. He goes all the way to your bedroom to try to cause division. So we thank you, Lord, for this opportunity to speak to one another and in psalms, hymns, spiritual songs, and revelation, so that we can give each other the benefit of your wisdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Zoe. Thank you, Zoe. Beautiful prayer. You cannot talk to Zoe without him mentioning God. I mean, he's just one of those. He's going to let you know how great God is and what he's doing for us here on earth. And so anyways, we're still waiting for Lucretia. I know she's trying to join, but let's get started with just, Zoe, let's talk about you. Okay. You've been, you've done something that a lot of people have a hard time making the leap to, and so have I. And I'm going to come out here. I've been a little sheepish on this since I'm a field coordinator for the John Birch Society, but I voted for Barack Obama in 2008. But I'll tell you, everybody listening, if somebody's mad at me, John McCain was no different than Barack Obama. You were voting for two globalists who wanted to destroy America, who wanted to create a new world order. So we were not better off with that, whichever way you voted in 2008. In fact, it may have been better for some of us to have woken up a little. You know, if John McCain would have been the president, we may not be as awake as we are now. And so, Zoe, I had a conversation with you a couple of days ago, and I asked you if you voted for Barack Obama and if you were, a Democrat. And I will say, I was part of the Democrat Party. I participated in the Democrat Party when I first was in college and when I initially got out, and then I switched to the Tea Party. Then I switched to the Libertarian Party. And then eventually the Libertarian Party got old. And then I joined the Republican Party because Ron Paul, I fell in love with the message of liberty. And then I joined the John Birch Society, and here I am today, a field coordinator. And you've done all sorts of Christian missionary work, though. You've got a beautiful family. And why don't you talk a little bit about, where your heart is on this? Because a lot of people in your position would say, there's a lot of people like you out there who are just not willing to get into the political realm. Not willing to talk about the John Birch Society, not willing to talk about, why you're putting hope in some, political leaders that, you're very vocal in your support. So talk about that if you would, Zoe.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was a apolitical, almost anti-political heathen up until I met Jesus. And then when I met Jesus, I became just a kind of an apolitical, I'm in the middle. I'm just going to go preach the gospel. We can get some people saved, change their hearts, and then they'll change their, philosophy. And then the change in philosophy should equal a change in voting patterns, So I didn't vote for Barack Obama in 2008. There's Lucretia. She is the
She's
one.
here.
Hey. I didn't vote for Barack Obama in 2008, but I was a supporter of Barack Obama. I was excited. I had just gotten saved in 2007. And so I was excited. I was like, oh, this looks like the judgment of God. Look, a Black president. Yay. And so I was so excited. And I listened to his message. It sounded pretty hopeful, like he was really middle of the road,
Yeah.
But then he went way off into the deep.
Yeah, I lived in Cincinnati, right next to the Cincinnati Bearcats football stadium. And right before the 2008 election, I didn't know who I was voting for. I wasn't paying attention at all. But all I knew was people from the inner city were showing up to the stadium, and I went to go see it. And people were so happy.
Yeah.
And in the inner city, people aren't that happy a lot of times. You don't see a lot of smiles. I mean, it's a rough life.
Yeah, it was
especially in the ghettos. And I lived right by the ghetto in Cincinnati, and it was nice to see people happy.
It was energizing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it was all vanity. It looked good.
Mm-hmm.
It looked amazing, but I mean, really, it turned out just to be another tool of a Luciferian movement,
right?
To move us further into the hands of people who just really want to have power and control and over everybody else. And so, I didn't realize that until 2012 when he was running against Mitt. I didn't support Mitt either. I was just praying in the spirit. I didn't vote for anybody. I was like, man, this is, I was kind of disillusioned at that point. Like, man, this doesn't matter. But I was still supporting Barack Obama in spirit. And then in 2015, I think it was 2015, it might've been 2014, but he made a statement, like our brothers and sisters were being murdered overseas by ISIS.
Yeah.
And we were like vocally going after President Barack Obama. I mean, and he comes to like, I think it was the National Day of Prayer or something to that effect. And he made a statement about, many people have done some, terrible things in the name of Christ. He reached back to the Crusades to pull out like some kind of like correction to Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, bro, I mean, are you serious? Are you a Christian? Because I mean, we're talking about our brothers and sisters being murdered, not like just some people that are in another country. These are people that have the same dad. These are people that were born again, and they're being. And you're talking about the Crusades, and so that was what opened my heart to even pay attention at all to the Republican Party, because I was like, there's got to be better than that. And so I was already anti-Democrat Party by that point, but not anti-Barack Obama. I was anti-abortion. I was anti all the things, because I got discipled, So anyway, I don't want to go long on that, but I just want to let you know that I am in a similar boat. I was a Democrat because I was born Black, and my parents were Democrats. And so,
I was born Democrat and I was born white. I mean, I came from a family of Democrats. Anyways, let's wave our flags. We have a donor, Paul Thiel, $25. Lucretia has one back. She'll clap for you. Okay. Thank you for your donation. All donations are split amongst our guest speakers. Zoe has been willing to come on the show, and so is Lucretia. Oh, there she's got something patriotic there. Lucretia's been on shows already, so she's our celebrity. But Lucretia really opened my eyes because she actually walked door to door for Barack Obama, and her heart was in it. She put her blood, sweat, and tears into getting him elected, and then she woke up. And Lucretia, if you would talk a little bit about your awakening to that.
My awakening is pretty much like his, but my awakening was when he sent the bus back to England, Winston Churchill, But what was really a stickler, because I started walking back on him when he stumbled over his oath of office. I don't know if people forgot about that. When he was taking his oath of office the first time around, he really messed up. And I was like, whoa, okay, let me sit back. The next thing he did was that he sent the Winston Churchill back. And then they had supermajority. And if anybody don't know what supermajority is in the government, that means the Democrats had the House, they had the Senate, and they had the White House, and they had all of the administration under them. But when they was pushing the healthcare mandate or Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and Nancy Pelosi said that we would have to pass it before we knew what was in it. Well, I'm sorry, being Black, and especially in the Black community, that was something that has been instilled in us in a very long time, is that Blacks didn't have the right to read or write. They could not vote because of Jim Crow laws, and it was just so many different certain things. So how are you going to present to the American citizens something that is about to take over a sixth of the economy and destroy a lot of family homes based on a lie, and we don't even know what's in that piece of legislation that you're getting ready to push? But now that we see it's a normal now that they don't read anything, they pass it, sign it, and go home.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing it a lot, and we need to bring back line item veto, because some of this stuff with the pork that they put within the stimulus packages or any of these budget deals, it should not be in there.
Yeah, yeah.
That was the only reason I like Jeb Bush, actually, because I think that's something he did. He
did that in
championed a lot
Florida.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't like Jeb because he called us a democracy. We are a republic.
Thank you.
Yeah, amen.
A little concerned because he came from George H.W. Bush, and he seemed to agree with his dad. And
Yeah.
anyways, I helped a Democrat in her congressional run when I lived in Kansas. I was actually a Howard Dean supporter. And so I supported Howard Dean for president until he did the famous woohoo that made the airwaves. And I was like, okay, well, it seems like the Democrats don't like him. I didn't know why I was a Democrat anyways. I just knew I didn't like the Republicans because I thought the Republicans only wanted war, and I didn't like neocons. And I thought the Democrats didn't have neocons. But it wasn't until Barack Obama became president I realized the neocons, the neoconservatives, which they named themselves the neoconservatives, they controlled both parties, the Republicans and Democrat parties. And basically they controlled both, making us think there were choices. But then we got to George W. Bush, who was a member of Skull and Bones, John Kerry, a member of Skull and Bones, and those were our choices for president, before we had the choice to pick Barack Obama. So I became disillusioned. And we've all gone through the same experience. Am I correct?
Very
Yes.
similar. Yeah.
We started to have a little bit of apathy, started to wonder how to fix the problems. And then eventually I realized when you join these parties, Democrat Party, Republican Party, it's hard to be an American in either party. Although in the Republican Party, Americanism is rising. And we saw that, with Donald Trump. We saw this with Ron Paul in 2012. We've seen it with Rand Paul. We see it with Thomas Massey, the congressman out of Kentucky. And Americanism is growing in America, but they're still trying to shut down Americanism. I love it when President Trump said, we are going to be an American first country. That blew me away. You know what? Americanism is great because Americanism is about your local area. It's not even about nationalism. We'd become a globalist empire, basically, destroying other countries so we could take them over and install central banks. And we need to revert to nationalism, and then we need to revert back to Americanism. And anyways, just talk about, do you have friends in the Democrat Party who are against you, Zoe and Lucretia? Are they still friends? I hope they're still friends, but
Are you asking Black people that? Most of us lost half our family members. Okay.
Yeah.
Is water
Why do they remain in the Democrat Party? Tell me. And let's not be snarky about it, okay?
I think, and I don't know for sure what they're thinking, but I think it has everything to do with an emotional attachment to things that they have expressed hatred towards. Like, if it's hard to double back once you've invested in hatred of something or somebody, because then you have to admit that you were wrong. Like, I used to hate folk song kind of acoustic guitar sounding music. I was a musician. I played Gibson SG, played a lot of rock, hard rock. I didn't want to hear a chinka 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 chink. But then I got saved and I started listening to different types of music, and I found out I really do like it. So I was willing to say, oh yeah, what, I was wrong. But most people aren't willing to say, wait a minute, I'm wrong. Even if they find information that proves that they're wrong, they will dismiss it looking for a way to prove that they're right. That's what I think is going on there.
Charles Roberts wrote here, he says, you are a Southerner. There used to be an old saying, you are a Southerner, you must be a Democrat. And he says, me, nope, I learned how to read. And that could be part of the problem for a lot of Democrats, is they don't have the intellectual ability to understand what's taking place. A lot of people, there has been an intentional downing of America. And we've seen that in our school systems through the fact that in the 1950s, kids were not taught how to read with phonics. They were taught to read with the whole sight word reading method, which is why most Americans today cannot read their Bibles. It's because it was intentionally done. And we know this for fact because these people who did it have said this. They've publicly stated this. And they saw it as their duty to destroy the American ability to read. And I start out my day with reading, and I know you don't have to anymore because there's so many videos, but reading really gets your brain going. That's a great thing to do when you're drinking a cup of coffee. Say a prayer, start reading, get that brain going in the morning. And that's really, I think that's we need to really encourage people to understand, to take time to educate themselves.
Well, they're not even doing that anymore because, no offense, if you read the Bible, there's no way you could be a Democrat. That's just the way it is. Because in the Black community, our churches and the foundation of our—
You're going to get some people mad, Lucretia. They're watching this.
Please, God,
they're Democrats and they call themselves Christians.
I don't care. God is going to make them even madder when they perish them to the pits of hell. So I'm trying to give them a wake-up call. Even Lazarus was like, hey, can you tell my brothers and sisters up now? We got prophets up here that can tell them themselves. So it's not up to me if you don't want to listen to what I got to say. It's the truth is the truth. But when you are a Democrat and you sitting here supposed to be a pastor in the pulpit, but the Democrats has completely took God out of their platform, how are you going to be a Democrat? How are you going to allow someone that don't have a problem with genocide and slaughtering the babies? Because God said, thou shalt not kill. When you're sitting here, when Democrats are telling their children not to listen to their mothers and fathers, but the Bible tells you that if you honor thy mother and father, your life shall be prolonged. I ain't the one that told you all this. This is what my heavenly Father has told this. They've been trying to get rid of the biblical word for the last 2,000 years. It ain't went nowhere. We keep finding out more stuff in the Bible is true than it's being false. So I'm going to live by the word. I'm going to die by the sword, and I'm going to put on the whole armor of God. So if the Black Klan and the Black folks are still Democrats, that ain't got nothing to do with me and the salvation of my soul.
Yeah. And so many Democrats today are supportive of abortions right at the time of birth, or even aborting a baby after the birth. It's just, it's devilish. And but I would say there are, and so I'll play the other side too. There are Republicans who have supported blowing up innocent people overseas. There have been people who have supported that. And we've dropped a lot of bombs overseas, our country. And that is a sad thing. And we've done some things in Syria against Christians it's very sad. Lindsey Graham supported the Muslim Brotherhood along with John McCain. That's, they were registered Republicans. And so a lot of us are still finding our way in whatever organization we're in, trying to bring these principles, these Americanist principles in. And you have to get into organizations. You can't just be a lone ranger out there. You're walking a flag down a street up and down trying to raise awareness. You have to join these organizations. You have to sit down with people. You have to look with people's in their eyes. You have to find out what's in people's hearts. You have to pray with people. You have to eat with people. So it's important for us to.
If you decide to do that, you'll be locked up or given a citation because you're not practicing social distancing.
But in Georgia, you're a bunch of rebels in Georgia right now. You know that. Okay, we've got some flags to wave. And Lucretia, wave whatever you got there. Okay, we have we said $25, but $10 from Jason Glassy. $10. Thank you.
Dude, and a restaurant, honey, because the restaurants are open in Georgia. I'm getting ready to go to El Rio with that $10.
One more flag wave. Dallas Hamilton, $50. And it's in honor of her baby sister, Darlene Roman, an American patriot and conservative who passed away on April 2nd. So
And you know, if it wasn't
prayers for
people
Lucretia,
like,
or for
if it wasn't for people like Evan Mulch,
for Dallas's
if-
sister.
if it
Go ahead.
wasn't for people like Dallas, if it wasn't people like the John Birch Society or the Tea Party, I would still be blind to the fact. It took people like Dallas Hamilton waking me up. It took people like in the Tea Party to wake me up. It took people like Evan Mulch giving me the research tools and to read, like he said, for myself and make my own mind up. But if you look at some of the Republicans and Democratic Party, they want us to be in this group think situation, but we was born by ourselves and we're going to die by ourselves and we're going to take account for our sins by ourselves. So all this stuff that Evan has invested every single day, getting the truth out there, everything that the John Birch Society has been doing since the 30s and the 40s, y'all need to pay attention because these people are not wrong when they talk about the 45 rules of communist goals, when they talk about Saul Lewinsky, when they talk about all this stuff. This stuff has been into works for a very long time.
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know we are 20 minutes into this. We have 33 attendees and we have 10 people on Facebook at least. Lucretia, I know you've probably shared it. You've got probably hundreds on your end that are watching this. Stephen Green just said here he's glad to be here. Stephen, if you don't know him, he's former chaplain of NASCAR. So we got some big names watching this, and you just it's incredible the reach you have when you are you're doing this sort of thing on the internet. And Lucretia, you inspired me to do this. You inspired me to start doing these live shows, and I've finally got them going, and you've helped me do this. And I thought, man, if she can do it, I can do this. And we're doing this every Tuesday evening and Thursday evening at 7 o'clock right now. So thanks, Lucretia, for being so inspiring. And you're just awesome at this. So anyways,
dynamo. You're a dynamo.
So name some things. Why is it wrong to be in the Democrat Party right now? Just name them. Some facts.
God, family,
Joe Biden,
country, Trump. Those 4 topics. They hate God. They destroyed the foundation of family. They hate this country. They hate this constitutional republic, and they hate Donald Trump. There you go. 4 topics. They hate God, family, country, and Trump.
Yeah.
Is it that simple? Is it really that simple?
Listen, I believe
go
that
ahead.
I believe that they're hand in hand with the thief. The Bible says that the thief comes but to steal, kill, and destroy. Right? The thief, if you team up with the thief, you are inviting the curse. The Bible says that a scroll is in your house and your house is cursed until you repent. You know? And so because the Democrat Party has joined hands with socialist ideology to steal from their neighbor, to villainize somebody and say, well, we think you're a villain because of X. That's not really unjust. And they go and they're like marauders. They're like, I can imagine them like bandits, all hoodied and masked up, waiting to just rob people in the name of their greater good, in the name of their idea of morality. And because they're teaming up with the thief, the only thing that they can do is steal, kill, and destroy. That's socialism, that's abortion, and their assault on our Constitution. Because they would rather overturn the country than allow the country to prosper as a constitutional republic.
That's true. And let's just get into the details, everybody. Epstein didn't kill himself, number one.
No, he didn't.
But this Out of the Shadows documentary just went viral on the internet, over 5 million views, exposing Pizzagate. The Podesta brothers are involved in some sick stuff. This is not something that we just let go. These people, they need to go to jail. Yeah. I mean, it is obvious there's a pedophile network amongst our government elites. Yeah. And we you know, and like you said, so Luciferian. Yeah. Look at the United Nations. The only religious room at the United Nations headquarters is ran by the Lucifer Publishing Company. There's no Christian church at the United Nations headquarters. Yeah. And they call themselves a Lucis Trust now in order for people not to observe that it's the Lucifer Publishing Company. But they were always, it's totally Luciferian, just like as you said earlier.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So what does that put the Pope? Because you remember the Pope just created a new religion with a Catholic and the Islamic faith. And not only did he do that, but he rewrote the Lord's Prayer.
Well, I mean, that puts him in a, I mean, there's not many Christians. I mean, you got to go against that if you're a Christian. Rewriting the Lord's Prayer, partnering with Muslims. I mean, it's that's if you are a Christian, and not everybody on this that's part of this webinar may be a Christian. Some may just be learning, and some may be on the other side.
Yeah.
And even if you're an atheist, you can still support Americanism. But here's what I have to say is, we're not going to save our republic unless we believe we have God-given rights.
That's the key. Do you believe your rights came from a creator God or from the government? Because if you believe they came from the government, then the Confederacy was justified because they gave men rights they wanted them to have. But if you believe your rights come from some place that they cannot be taken away, that doesn't mean it comes from the consensus. It means it comes from a lawgiver who says this can't be violated. And so now, whether you agree with Jesus, I'd love to have you with me in heaven in the future. But as far as our having peace together on the earth, there is no other just system that I know of that has ever existed besides the one that was on the shoulders of Jesus, because it calls for men to carry the sword, to bear the sword, who love their neighbor, who try to love their enemy and make peace with people.
Yeah. Christianity goes the extra distance. It really does. And it takes out the excuses for allowing people to, run these pedophile networks. You've got to always be going as the light of Christ wants you to go. And we need to get God back in schools. We need for churches to once again truly believe in God. We have so many local religious organizations who are made up of mostly Democrats. I mean, is that true? Am I?
No, you're telling the truth.
Look at what's going on right now.
How can you even look at Nancy Pelosi during Ash weekend or whatever they call in the Catholic Church? We know she's not praying for our president. I don't care what she say, how she say it, unless she's praying for his downfall. So when you're looking at someone like Hillary Clinton, who says she's a Christian, but she wears the cross upside down. When you're looking at Nancy Pelosi, but she's willing to murder and genocide babies. When you're looking at people like Joe Biden, who went into a Catholic church to take communion and thinking that he could, then eventually they making a mockery of what it means to be a Christian within the Christian faith. And I'm not going to deal with that. That's why I call myself is saved by the blood of Jesus Christ. I'm not a Christian. Yeah. I am saved. That's totally different.
Yeah, a man named John just messaged me. He says, I'm not a fan of the Pope, but I'm still a strong Roman Catholic Christian. Please don't confuse the Pope with the Catholics. And so that's a good point right there.
Way to go.
Yeah.
My dad's Catholic. And, I remember when my dad got saved, it was at my wedding. We had this crazy conversation when I was on the way to my wedding. He was really anti everything I had to say about God. I got saved recently. He didn't know what sin was. And he was like, nobody knows what sin is. It's whatever, it's your conscience. There's nothing in there. Well, I didn't know it, but the minister that was conducting our wedding, his message was on sin, transgression, and iniquity. So he stood up there and took verse by verse to teach what sin was. So my dad was like, oh my God, God is here.
So the Holy Spirit worked on him. Yeah. Very. Daniel Reed said, "Here's my mother's Hispanic and my father's African American, so by default I was a Democrat. I became enlightened when I started paying attention after September 11. It didn't take me long to realize that the Democrat agenda does not align with my personal beliefs and convictions. All I had to do was to do some critical thinking and self-education. Unfortunately, most Hispanic African Americans are blinded by the Democrat lie that all Republicans, conservatives are anti-immigrant and racist." And he's right at that. We're pro-immigration, legal immigration. If you are, if you're an Americanist. I don't call myself a Republican because I'm an Americanist, but if you are in the Republican Party and you're an Americanist, you believe in you're pro-immigration but legal immigration, and you're absolutely against racism. You have to be absolutely against racism if you're an Americanist, and that's and in the Democrat Party there is more racism than you'll ever find in the Republican Party. Am I correct?
And they proud about it. They got blacks hating on blacks. They have whites hating on whites. They have Hispanics hating on Hispanics. And how is that? I don't understand. How are you being a black person, but you're hating on the next black man? but you're trying to say that they're supposed to be helping our community. If that was the case, why do our communities look the same way since LBJ? If they supposed to be helping our communities, what happened to the voices of the Black community? Because right now, the only thing I'm hearing out of Black community is bashing our men. Our men is constantly being bashed every way but loose. We can look at Vernon Jones as a recent example, or you could take someone like myself and Zoe, who's actually walked that walk and talked that talk and lost a lot of friends.
Janice Morrow said here, the Salt and Light Council has training for Christians on biblical citizenship and worldview. You know, when I joined the Republican Party when I first moved to South Carolina because I supported Ron Paul. And what I loved was the Republican creed. Isn't that all about Americanism?
I think they forgot that.
Yeah, well, you're right. And that's what I found out right away. We read the Republican creed, but most of the Republicans in the Republican Party do not want to obey the Republican creed. Am I right? Yeah. Okay. So what are you going to do? Lucretia, you've joined the John Birch Society. Zoe, you're a member now. Thank you so much for joining. What can we do as with members that have this education? What can we do to help save the country in the Republican Party, amongst the MAGA events that are getting ready to happen? How can we spread these American principles and drag people, not drag them. We don't want to drag anybody. We want it to be in the hearts of Democrats to leave the Democrat Party. How do we go about reaching out to those people and pulling those people in? Because all three of us, it's easy to lose hope, right? Those Democrats aren't going to join us. They're never going to join the American effort. All three of us voted for Barack Obama.
Zoe?
It takes education, right?
Zoe, you answer that one, bro.
Look, you can tell Lucretia's lost some hope in pulling Democrats out.
My opinion is never give up. I have some, never Trumpers. That's why, because I'm a Trump supporter, even though I don't agree with everything that I don't like, but I'm like, man, look, I don't know anybody else who's like at like 88% to 90% that could win an election and become president besides Donald Trump. And I'm going to support that dude because he's in the ring. And even though he don't fight exact, dude is blow for blow, head and shoulders above probably every president since Reagan, And so I can't say we can really grab a hold of never Trumpers, but Democrats, on the other hand, oftentimes Democrats have some core values. Oftentimes they are against cronyism, but they call it capitalism. And so there's other things that are similar to that, like you were saying, education, where there's just a distinction that needs to be made. So they understand that no, I agree with you. We agree. You just, this narrative that's been superimposed that takes the baby in the bathwater and tosses them in the street. And so I hope that's helpful. I think making
so help me with understanding this, because Lucretia, we talked about this last Thursday. Okay. If I go into the Black community and I start talking about the Illuminati, I'm going to have better conversations about the Illuminati than I would in the white suburbs. Okay.
Yeah, it's true.
But they're members of the Democrat Party, right? A lot of these.
Know what the Democrat Party stands for. My mother tell you right now, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left her. A lot of my family, when I'm doing my live feeds, I see y'all pop on, peekaboo. I see you trying to figure out what I'm talking about today. Won't you stay here, because I'm finna blow your mind with research. I'm gonna blow your mind with articles. I'm gonna blow your mind with what I'm talking about. One thing you can't call me is a liar, because I got the stuff to back up. Like the Bible says, we can't force nobody to do anything. We can only witness to them and give them the truth. If they refuse to hear anything we have to say, knock that dust off your shoes and march on to the next man. But don't sit there and keep banging your head up against the wall. And sometimes when you talk to a lot of Democrats, it feel like you're banging your head up against the wall. So go to someone that's more susceptible. The same people that was going to talk to you about the Illuminati, you ease that other stuff in there and it's going to start waking them up. But if you just go full front and be like, I'm a Republican, get out of their neighborhood.
You're the enemy, huh? Yeah. Zoe, did anybody try to wake you up at some point, or did you figure this out on your own?
Well, I figured it out only because I got discipled. Like making and when I say making disciples, not just like, you know, what the Bible says about X, Y, and Z necessarily, but like what the Bible says about social issues. And I think that's why a lot of Black pastors are into the Democrat Party. I think it's a lie about like the social justice aspect of the Democrat Party. If I'll give you an example, when I was being transformed and you know, made not apolitical but more political, supporter, he said, look, the atheist system is built on Marx. The Bible says in Psalm 1 that blessed is the man who does not take counsel from the ungodly. Was Karl Marx godly?
Mm-hmm. And a lot of us know that Karl Marx actually he converted to the other side. I mean, he was raised, from my understanding, he was raised to believe in God, and he eventually he was terrible to his own family, even his own children. And that's really the history of a lot of these communist socialist leaders, is that they left their family with nothing. They went into this world of indulgence, of materialism, of having no faith in God, and just living life based upon whatever feels good, you know. And that's really the history of Marx, Lenin, Stalin, Trotsky. The list goes on and on of all these figures that are, you know, look at Castro, you know, just
Wow.
all around. I bet you all of them have come from that sort of background. Of course, some of them may have been raised with parents that wanted them to believe in God. But anyways, it's the history is, though, they were anti-God.
Yeah, exactly. That's where they ended up, for sure.
So people don't have hope at all, when they don't have hope and they beaten up, they are waiting for that quick fix, that 3-second fix to give them a little bit of tingle up their leg. You know, that's what people are looking for. But this is temporary. When you have knowledge, it took me until I was in my 30s to really understand that knowledge is power. That was some kind of key to behind that statement, because they could take everything away from you, but what's up here? They can literally destroy your whole life, but what you find out. So when I tell my kids, because that's one thing, my children, being a single mom and having 4 kids before I was 20, you know, I taught my kids to read. Every week you read a book. Every day I had my Kindle in my hand reading. I made my children learn to read and think for themselves. And maybe that's why I have well-rounded individual kids. And that's why I'm teaching my grandchildren too. You don't follow the leader, you are the leaders.
Amen. We don't follow. Amen. We lead.
So for the Democrats, I mean, it must be. I wonder what it's like to be a Democrat in the Democrat Party right now. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, just to even raise your hand and support Hillary Clinton. I mean, after knowing, everybody knows about the Clinton kill count. You can't be a Democrat and not know that there's a Clinton kill count.
Yeah.
They dismiss it. I mean, it's conspiracy theory.
To them, it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
It just, that stuff doesn't happen by coincidence.
No.
It's because CNN and MSNBC has not made it a big deal, so therefore it's not a big deal.
Well, there you go. He's telling the truth. The bodies keep hitting the floor. She got a long trail behind her of corpses. We call it Clinticide, Arkansas. We call it Epstein didn't kill himself side. So, you know, it is what it is. You can't rape and pillage a whole country and not somebody say something. You can't treat Haiti the way you did. You can't go into Ukraine and be that corrupt. You can't go into Russia. All this stuff in the background of what the Clintons have done. I didn't learn from you. I learned from you, Evan, that stop looking at the Clintons. Look at her daddy. Look at the granddaddy. Look at what the skull and crossbones are. Look at the Bohemian Grove. Look at the spirit cooking. You taught me to broaden that horizon, and it's like a 6 degree of separation where you got Republicans and Democrats hanging in the same bed.
I want to apologize for taking down that road, Lucretia, but I'm glad you did. Here, if you don't understand the enemy, we're never going to defeat the enemy.
Nope.
Yeah.
And I know some people sometime react. They want to tell me, oh, don't tell everybody about the Council on Foreign Relations. Don't let people know that the Lucis Trust is a religious organization partnered with the United Nations. Don't let people know that Bohemian Grove, they may or may not be sacrificing a child during than during their ceremony. And all the presidents before Donald Trump, really, I don't know it's for a fact, but most of the presidents in the 20th century went to Bohemian Grove. Ronald Reagan went there. Richard Nixon went there. They went to Bohemian Grove, and this is where they do a fake child sacrifice. This stuff's real.
Moloch.
Moloch. Yeah. Skull and Bones is real. They worship death at the Skull and Bones. This is public knowledge because people who have been Skull and Bones have revealed this. Yeah. And this is the same fraternity that or secret group that George W. Bush was part of and John Kerry was part of.
There was a episode, or there was a meeting where the Pope was last year, and he was standing in front of this effigy, or he was standing in front of this statue. And I've always said the altar of Baal, the altar of Baal. They slaughtering babies at the altar of Baal. Well, guess what he was standing in front of? He was literally standing in front of the altar of Baal. And you're supposed to be the leader of billions, or the shepherd of billions of souls. That's scary.
Well, listen, I want to throw this bone out there. I don't think that the Pope necessarily is walking fully in the truth, to be fair. I mean, a lot of people aren't. I think oftentimes, though, like he's trying to be the peacemaker between different things too, but I don't think there's any room for adding to the word of God or taking away from it. I don't believe there's any room for some illusion that Christians and Muslims worship the same God. That's two different characters. It's not the same
Absolutely.
God. But at the same time, like I just see him as someone who has not been awakened. He gone so far as to be born again and have his eyes enlightened so he can see clearly the spiritual realm. I don't believe that, because it's not possible that he could be rubbing shoulders with the people he's rubbing shoulders with if that was the case.
Okay. Well, let me just say something here real quick. We've got Zoe Warren, Lucretia Hughes, both on this. They've dedicated. I know there's a lot of patriots on here, but when you dedicate your time and energy to patriotism, it takes over your job sometimes. It becomes your job. And so anyways, we do want to give them an honorarium before this is over with. That's something the Speakers Bureau does. And right now we have $85 worth of donations. We're going to divide it amongst the two. So thank you everybody so far. But I know we've got 33, 34 people that are on this webinar. I know we got more on Facebook that are watching this. If you want to make a donation before this is over, go to scspeakers.org. That's scspeakers.org, and go to the top right-hand corner and click the Support Us tab. scspeakers.org, click on the Support Us tab in the top right-hand corner, or you can go to PayPal and go to paypal.me/SCSpeakers, paypal.me/SCSpeakers if you want to make a donation. This is an honorarium. People who take the time for this, I believe, deserve, they got the word out. They're going to share this video. This is a good thing that we're doing here. And we want the next speakers to know that we do this for them, because we want to bring in big time speakers into these webinars. We have them today. We had them on Tuesday, and we want to keep doing this. Zoe, I know you think you're not a big time speaker, but come on, man. You're one of a kind. And we've had some great conversations. And if you ever want to have a great conversation, you just need to call Zoe. And he's a man of character, and I just so thankful for you. I'm going to look back at a comment here that was made. Let's see. Somebody was wanting to know more. Okay, Dallas Hamilton says here, the Democrat ideology is Luciferian. It is not conservatives who are pushing abortion, LGBT, communism, sex with minors, and perversion. It's the Democrats.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to the LGBT movement. How does that affect the Democrat Party and the Black community as well? What is that? Talk about that a little bit.
I'm gonna let Zoe do it because he's the man. He's the man. He's the man. Go ahead, Zoe.
Well, I mean, obviously, the LGBTQ issue is not even really fully accepted in the Black community. I mean, Black churches, a lot of them are not necessarily with that, And so I'm kind of thankful that they tried to make it a big deal, trying to force feed it to the Democrat Party, because I think it kind of fissured them a little bit. It didn't help them come together. So I'm like, keep doing it, keep feeding the Ouroboros, let it eat itself. Granted, I don't want to push them to the school system issues and all that stuff there, but the more that they do that stuff, I think the less ground they gain.
Yeah.
Because common sense, it makes sense on the surface. Children understand what makes sense, trying to force reality to bend, it makes you look like an idiot. And a lot of the things they do make them look like idiots. And so the LGBTQ issue is one of those.
Yeah, it's not acceptable in the Black community. I don't care how much you want to say, well, y'all against gays. Let me tell you something. You pushing that on our little Black boys and our Black men out here in the Black community, gonna get you smacked. We don't play that mess, okay? It's well known in the Black community, don't accept and never have accept the gay agenda. So I don't care what y'all want to think about the Black community. It is what it is in our community. So you trying to push little Tyrone right here to be little Pinky when he grow up, ain't gonna happen in the Black community. You gonna get ran up out of there. We don't.
Yeah, I noticed it when they did the witchcraft story time, or whatever they call it, the LGBT story time with these men that are dressed as women. It was white children that were being brought in there. I don't recall any, from the Black community that brought their children in. It just goes to show. Yeah.
I just want to say, I have friends that are gay. Okay. I have friends that, that cross-dress. I mean, we don't hang out, we don't go to the store, but I know them. We talk, we have phone conversations. When they're troubled, they'll call me because they want to hear they want some understanding. So they call me for counsel, and I'm talking through it, and we love them as people. Now their ways and the way they do things, I don't think that it should be mainstream. I don't think that pedophilia should be mainstream, and and that's something they're trying to add to the letter soup. Yeah, is pedophilia. And so if I don't agree with the style, but I love the people, and I would love to be able to help them through trouble, help mend their broken hearts. But I don't want your policies to be the way of life, and that's just what it is.
And it's just wrong to push that on children. I mean, it's criminal.
And I don't.
But Zoe, look at
that. We can accept you and love you for who you are, and not accept what you do. Yeah. So just because I love you as a person, that don't mean I care about what you do in your bedroom. Stop shoving it down my throat, and stop shoving it down my children and my grandchildren's throat to be acceptable. That is what they did. And that is what they continue to do. And that's what the LGBTQ community do. If you don't like our lifestyle, then you hate us. Then eventually you hate yourself. How are we going to accept you when you ain't decided to even accept yourself yet? Because if you chopping off your nuts and berries, you are hating the foundation of what God made you. So if you can't accept you, how you forcing it on us to accept you also? Love yourself before you want anybody else to love you.
And we're finding out people want their nuts and berries back too. I mean, we are finding that out. That's true. I mean, people are regretting the decisions they're making when they make the sex changes. Yeah. Okay, Tim Martin, $50. Wave, whatever you've got.
Go Trump. Yay. Go
50.
USA, USA.
Oh, there you go. That's better. There you go. Okay. Man, a lot of people are going to be mad at me because they're going to think this was a Trump support webinar. I got some people that are going to be on my case.
Well, listen, I don't even know that I would be so deep into the political realm if it wasn't for Donald Trump. Because what I found was he was up against this barrage. I mean, he was like, I say he's a gladiator in a ring with wild beasts and butchers. And I mean, I don't care if he fights sloppy. I cheer when he wins, because he was up against everybody and their mama, and they were lying on the man. That's what made me one of the main reasons I became a Trump supporter, is I found out they were lying on him about as if though he really made fun of a disabled person's disability. That wasn't true. And then they kept, I mean, it was like 2 years deep and they're still saying that same lie. And I know if you do any investigative research, you saw the same stuff I saw. So anyway, I'll let that go. But This is not a MAGA rally, but
Well, hey, MAGA fans make great John Birch Society members. I've found that out personally. Just as long as we don't the USMCA, I don't know what Trump is thinking there. The USMCA was pushed by the Council on Foreign Relations, but I do understand the executive has the ability to get rid of it because it is unconstitutional. And so I'm hoping Trump's playing a game with the deep state on that. But I hope it looks like there's some good things happening, but I'm heavily concerned about the USMCA passing, and so is every John Birch Society member. Go ahead,
I don't
Zoe.
think Trump. I don't believe that President Trump is a conservative himself. I believe he's very liberal, but I think he has hemmed himself in with conservatism. Like he's got people that are strong conservative libertarians on one side and people who are weak Republican conservatives on the other side, to kind of keep him within a realm where he still has some liberal tendencies, where he wants to be able to use government to fix certain issues. And that's why he would do something.
I'm
like
going to
that.
go there with that, because I've been assigned to write a letter about Q, an article about Q. And we have a lot of JBS members that are following Q. And Q is a very hopeful character, whoever Q is. That being said, I just read a book from a former CIA agent that knows a lot, and I'm not going to mention his name here, but just by reading his book, I understand he's not a Bircher. And whoever's behind Q, they could be making some mistakes along the way, because I think the Q followers have been misled in a lot of ways. But it's just like with what you said, Zoe.
Okay.
Your awakening came through learning through Trump. Lucretia, I think the same thing happened to you. Trump gave you a reason to go out there and be proud about your American heritage. And that's because what he said when he campaigned in 2016 was all about Americanism. It was all about being the way America was supposed to be.
That he wasn't my first choice. My first choice was Dr. Ben Carson. That was my first.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Ben Carson was my first choice. I went to South Carolina Tea Party Convention when Donald Trump was up there. Dr. Ben Carson was up there. Everyone was up there. And I met Candy, and I also met Dr. Ben Carson. They said, whoever you are, continue doing what you were doing. So, but what made me jump on Donald Trump's side is one of the debates. And that was when Dr. Ben Carson did not hear his name called because the clapping was going on so long. So he stood back there. You had Marco Rubio pass him without telling him they called your name. And you also had Sleepy Jeb Bush. And I don't want a dynasty within the United States, so the Bushes can swerve to the side, okay? We don't need dynasty, especially someone that's going to be bending over to the deep state like Sleepy Jeb does, low energy Jeb does, okay? We don't need that no more. But when Donald Trump stopped, tapped Dr. Ben Carson on the shoulder, shook his hand, and said, "Go ahead, sir, your time." I switched just like that.
That's
switched.
Nice. That's very kind. That's very nice. That's very nice. I switched because I actually didn't know who to support. Like I said, I was not like, deep Republican or anything. I was actually looking at Marco Rubio, and because I didn't know anything about the difference. I was not a trained conservative at the time. And Marco Rubio said, "I won't do like Donald Trump. I'll never do what he does." Basically, you kind of being a mocker and stuff. And then the next debate, he did it, and I was like, that dude lied to my face.
Because no offense, but Marco Rubio don't know how to joan. We know how to joan, okay? I joan every day. So unless you know who Donald Trump remind me of? Every older person I've ever raised, whoever raised me. They didn't have time to sugarcoat nothing to you. They didn't have time to sit there. They stepped on your toes, but they told you like a TI is, and they gave you tough love. And that's exactly what he's 70-something years old. You expecting him to change his ways?
Right. Nope.
No.
Well, I think what we can do as Americans that are, we're part of the younger generation that's in politics, we can change the future of America. And even though right now in some grocery stores you can't buy eggs, you can't buy flour. I mean, that was me today. You can't buy flour at the Ingles store next where I live in Spartanburg. There was no flour. We are experiencing, a free trial on socialism right now. And it's because so many people that are older than us did not agree with Americanism. They were spoiled, and they decided to go against God and to destroy what the republic has been made of. And we've got to be the ones that restore it. We got to be able to tell people to hack it. Get involved in the John Birch Society. Get a membership in the John Birch Society. Learn the truth, as Lucretia said earlier. Go dig deeper on what the deep state is. It's for everybody who's a Republican out there. It is your educational tool. Get it so you can share it at Republican events. Share our magazines, share our reprints, share our DVDs. Same with Democrats. If there's Democrats watching, if you're going to remain part of the Democrat Party, I'm not going to hold it against you if you join the John Birch Society and start sharing our stuff in the Democrat Party. I'm not going to hold it against you because, man, you have more courage than I do if you're in the Democrat Party and you're sharing John Birch Society material at the Democrat events.
Yeah.
First, they got to understand what this is all about.
Yeah,
most of them don't have an idea about the Bill of Rights, the Magna Carta. They have no idea what their inherent rights was that was given by the man upstairs. This right here, the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights sets us apart from every other nation in the world because we are a constitutional republic. We're not a democracy, people.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got people that are wondering how to send a donation. So I'm going to say it again. Go to scspeakers.org and click and click the support us tab at the top right hand corner. Anyways, and you can always send me a check, or don't send it to me right to the SC Speakers Bureau, but I can talk to you afterwards. Just if you would chat and let me know what you're sending so that we know before the end of this broadcast how much has been collected, and so we know what the honorariums are going to be for our guest speakers. They are members of the John Birch Society, and it's not an easy thing to do, to be a open member of the John Birch Society and to be willing to defend the John Birch Society. But I'm doing my best to equip everybody in the society with the information they need to understand that there is nothing to be ashamed of if you're a member of the John Birch Society. The John Birch Society was always correct. Look at some of our, look at Manning Johnson from the 1950s, 1960s. You can still go to YouTube, go to Manning Johnson's farewell speech. One of our best members of the John Birch Society, Black American in California, just totally destroyed the deep state plans by giving speeches against the socialist destruction that was taking place. Julia Brown from Cincinnati, wonderful lady who gave incredible, she joined the civil rights movement, and then she found out it was backed by communists, which I don't fault some people for joining the civil rights movement because, it was an opportunity to end segregation. But the John Birch Society had always been against segregation, and we didn't need to cause what came close to being a war in some areas by causing chaos. We didn't need to do that to end segregation. We do it by changing people's hearts. We don't want wars. The devil creates wars. We just want to do things peacefully. And sometimes there are conflicts that anyways, if you get put so far back in a corner, sometimes you do have to swing back. And that's what's happened a lot of time in history. And that's what happened to the Americans that had been put in their corner, and they had to get rid of the British Empire. And that's why 1776 happened, which eventually gave us 1787, which is our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and the first republic that was created to defend the God-given rights of every person living within that country. Although they didn't do it perfectly, slavery was wrong, segregation was wrong, but we're never going to go back on that path again.
Listen, I'd like to say this too. Like, slavery was the law of the earth. I mean, and it has been. It's in the Bible, and it's in the Bible. It's not even like
no, come back. Come back. Come back.
He said,
I know. Yeah.
No, listen, he said, do not, kidnapping people is evil. Kidnapping people is evil. Kidnapping people and doing unrighteousness to people is evil. Don't do that. But if slaves, listen, masters, you have a master in heaven, so treat them righteously. So the issue was unrighteousness. Like, I believe even we could have avoided the Civil War because if they would have appealed to the ideology and the evil and treating them unrighteously is evil. That in itself, accompanied with all the literature that was being passed out at the time, I mean, listen, I'm not trying to say I'm thankful that we went to war and I'm free. I'm thankful that I got free, but I think that we could have done it without angst against the Black community because of the Civil War. I don't care who you try to force to do something that's against their whatever. If you try to force them to do it, you create an enemy. You don't create people who are just going to bow.
And you know what? Stop apologizing for slavery. Every society in the world, every country that has been developed on this earth was taken and had slaves. But you're not saying, no one is talking about the slavery that's going on right now in Libya. Nobody is talking about the slavery right now that's happening in Syria. Nobody is talking about the Coptic Christians that's being slaughtered by the thousands. So
Jesus.
until we can start talking about the slavery that's going on in 2020, don't want to talk about slavery that happened in 1920.
Right, right. I mean, the 1960s, it got almost 100% Republican support. It wasn't until in 1964, like it lost a little bit of Republican support. And some of the Republicans that it didn't get were people who saw the LGBTQ thing coming. If I force you to have to serve someone, then that means if somebody has that kind of ideology, I can force them to have to, like, okay, you think you're a woman, you're a guy? Well, I think I'm a woman. You need to wax my berries and my nuts.
Well, let's wave our flags for Greg Hamilton. Greg Hamilton, $50. John, I'm gonna, the last name's different for me, so Pickethy, it looks like, $25. John, thank you. And I'm gonna go through here. Gerald Knight, $25. Thank you. Don Dupree, $25.
Woo!
Or maybe 10, one of the two. Joseph Searing, 25. And I am one person, so adding these in my head is going to be nearly impossible. Stephen Green, $5. Every little bit counts. Thank you, Stephen. And keep going down here. You know, it's hard to get the names from some of these. Eva Long, $10. Thank you so much. And a couple of them are missing names, so please write in the chat if you donated and you did get. Daniel Reed donated $25. Thank you so much. And we have reached the 1 hour point, and that's how long we go with these webinars. And I'm going to add this all up. If you get the Birch and our email, you will find out tomorrow what we were able to raise, and it's a great honorarium. Somebody just texted me $25. I got to look up and see who the text came from. Okay, we got that. 25 from Joseph Searing. We already announced him. But anyways, I will collect it and then we'll send checks or PayPal payments or whatever to Lucretia and Zoe. Thank you for what you're doing to help the John Birch Society by getting the word out about us. These are Tuesday evenings and Thursday evenings at 7 o'clock, everybody. And if you go to birchandr.com, you can sign up for our emails and you can sign up for our text messages that come out before the events. So go to birchandr.com, spelled BIRCHINAR.com. Zoe, how can people reach you if they want to reach you?
If you go to facebook.com/God's Plain Truth TV, God's Plain Truth TV. I'm always on Facebook. And so that's my main thing. That, or you can do God's Plain Truth TV at gmail.com.
And how do people find you, Lucretia?
Type my name in on any social media website because I was diversified now.
Okay, all right. Thank you, everybody. We're going to end the meeting by showing the video overview of America. You don't have to stick around for this, but we're going to play this video. Joan Brown just sent $10. We'll wave the flag for her. Joan Brown, thank you. We're getting some last minute donations here. Anyways, God bless all of you. Looks like another donation from Daniel Reed for $25. Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to watch the video overview of America. For anybody that wants to stick around, you can stick around. If you want to go, you can. But if you haven't watched overview of America yet, here is your chance. Thank you so much for being here, Zoe and Lucretia.
Thank you.
And $25 from Jay and Alex Zelling. We got it to the last second here. Zoe, I think you're still here. Maybe you can wave the flag. Here we go. Okay. Thank you, Jay and Alex.
God bless.
America. Born in 1776, our country is the offspring of a religious-based heritage of liberty under law. Blessed with great natural resources and a pioneer people given to industry and moral discipline, our nation grew to be strong and prosperous and developed the finest governmental system ever devised by man. America soon became known as the refuge of the world's tired, hungry, and poor. Millions left everything in the old world to start over in a land that rewarded initiative and hard work and perseverance. The many millions who didn't come here found comfort and hope in knowing that indeed there was such a bastion of freedom and opportunity, a place where dreams could become reality. Today, our nation appears wealthier and more powerful than ever. New technologies have revolutionized our daily lives. Luxuries once enjoyed only by the rich are commonplace and very affordable. Home ownership is widespread, and our people have the expectation of continued economic growth and prosperity. Yet more and more people are coming to realize that they may prosper materially only for a time because their freedoms are diminishing. The sobering reality is that America has been led far from its praiseworthy beginnings. Our people and businesses groan under a heavy burden of economic, political, and social problems, which are the result of a widespread departure from the fundamental truths that made our nation great. If the United States of America is to endure, citizens far and wide must once again come to understand, embrace, and live by timeless concepts called Americanism. What made America great and set it apart from other lands? Was it natural resources? No, other lands are equally blessed. Was it the people? No, the people who built America came from elsewhere. Was it government planning and wisdom that spurred our nation to such heights? No again. It wasn't what government did that made America great. It was what government was prevented from doing that made the difference. What set America apart from other lands was freedom for the individual. Freedom to work, to produce, to succeed, and especially to keep the fruits of one's labors. America became great precisely because the stifling effect of too much government had been prevented. However, freedom in America was not totally unrestrained. Americans overwhelmingly chose to limit their actions with moral codes such as the Ten Commandments, personal morality, and limited government. It's a combination that characterized America and made it the envy of the world. When our founding fathers decided they'd had enough of British oppression, they broke away and declared independence. They stated as self-evident truth in the Declaration of Independence that men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. In other words, God gave man his rights, and that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And in the very next sentence, the founders defined the proper role of government when they stated that to secure these rights, governments are instituted. This is the entire philosophical base of our nation. Here, the government cannot legitimately redistribute the wealth, assume power over the people's lives, and dominate man's existence with oppressive taxation, regulations, and controls. According to the founders, government was to be a negative force, which leaves people alone. Its sole function is to protect citizens from one another and from foreign governments, and especially from their own government itself. The founders did not create a government to be a positive force, to do things for people, to take from some, to give to others. They understood that when a government starts doing something for one citizen, it has to take from another to do so. And in the process, it gains control over both. Britain's rulers didn't accept the Declaration of Independence, so our forefathers had to fight a war to make it stick. By 1783, the war for independence had been won, and British forces were sent back across the sea. But the governmental system at that time was weak. It had no power to settle disputes between the states, nor the power to tax for proper needs, such as national defense. So in 1787, delegates from 12 of the 13 states met in Philadelphia to revise the system, and they produced an entirely new governmental structure known as the Constitution of the United States. Keeping faith with the thunderous assertions in the Declaration, the Constitution was written to govern the government, not the people, and not the states, each of which was a jealous guardian of its own sovereignty. The founders created a central government with strictly limited powers. This left the states free to compete with one another to be the best state, the one with the least amount of taxation and controls, one where citizens would want to build a business and raise a family. That spirit of competition produced excellence, as honest competition always does. It's important to note that the Constitution wasn't forced on the people. It was sent back to the states for ratification, and several of the Founding Fathers wrote essays explaining it in an effort to persuade fellow Americans to adopt this new system of government. Some of the essays written by James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay were collected into a volume known as the Federalist Papers. Those essays provide valuable insights into the intent of the founders in establishing our government. Eventually, all 13 states ratified the Constitution, and then each ratified the first 10 amendments known as the Bill of Rights, further tying the hands of the federal government. These amendments are indeed about rights, but it would have been better had the Bill of Rights been labeled the Bill of Limitations on Government. Why? Because it's vital to realize that the Bill of Rights never gave citizens any rights whatsoever. Its sole purpose was to safeguard God-given rights by limiting government power. The founders even insisted that Congress shall make no law about speech, religion, the press, assembly, the right to petition, the right to keep and bear arms, and so on. These amendments are directed squarely at the federal government, not the individual and not the states. They are like most of the 10 Commandments, which are essentially thou shalt nots. The Bill of Rights says Congress shall not, all the way up to the marvelous 10th Amendment, which says in effect, if we forgot anything, you can't do that either. When Benjamin Franklin exited the Constitutional Convention, he was asked by a woman, "Sir, what have you given us?" His immediate response was, "A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it." Yet most Americans today have been persuaded that our nation's governmental system is a democracy and not a republic. The difference between these two is essential in understanding Americanism and the American system. Before we discuss political systems, however, it's helpful to address the confusion that has been spread about the political spectrum. Many have been led to believe that the political spectrum places groups such as communists on the far left, fascists or dictators on the far right, and political moderates or centrists in the middle. However, a more accurate political spectrum will show government having 0 power on the far right to having 100% power on the far left. At the extreme right, there is no government. The extreme left features total government under such labels as communism, socialism, Nazism, fascism, princes, potentates, dictators, kings, any form of total government. Those who claim that Nazis and fascists are right-wing never define their terms. This amounts to spreading confusion. Toward the middle of the political spectrum can be found the type of government limited to its proper role of protecting the rights of the people. That's where the Constitution of the United States is. Those who advocate such a form of government are really constitutional moderates. So let's analyze the basic forms of government. They are monarchy or dictatorship ruled by one, oligarchy ruled by a few, democracy ruled by a majority, republic ruled by law, and anarchy, which is ruled by no one. In discussing these 5, we'll see that they can be narrowed down to even fewer. Looking first at monarchy or dictatorship, this form of government doesn't really exist in the practical sense. It's always a group that puts one of its members up front, A king has his council of nobles or earls, and every dictator has his bureaucrats or commissars, the men behind the scenes. This isn't ruled by one, even though one person may be the visible leader. It's ruled by a group. So let's eliminate monarchy, dictatorship, because it never truly exists. Oligarchy, which is ruled by a group, is the most common form of government in all history. And it is the most common form of government today. Most of the nations of the world are ruled by a powerful few, and therefore oligarchy remains. At the other end, we find anarchy, which means without government. Some people have looked over history and found that many of its worst crimes were committed by governments, so they decided that having no government might be a good idea. But this is a mistake, because as the ancient Greeks stated, without law there can be no freedom. Our founding fathers agreed and held that some amount of government is a necessary force in any civilized, orderly society. In a state of anarchy, however, everyone has to guard life, liberty, and property, and the lives of family members. Everyone must be armed, and movement is severely restricted because one's property has to be protected at all times. Civilized people have always hired someone to do the guarding, a sheriff, a police force, or some branch of government. Once law enforcement was in place, the people were freer. They could leave their property, work in the fields, and so on. In short, the proper amount of government makes everyone freer. There are some who advocate anarchy, however, not because they want no government, but because they don't like what they have. They use anarchy as a tool for revolutionary change. The condition of anarchy is very much like a vacuum where something rushes in to fill it. These calculating anarchists work to break down the existing government with rioting, killing, looting, and terrorism. Tragically, the people living in such chaos often go to those best able to put an end to it and beg them to take over and restore order. And who is best able to put an end to the chaos? The very people who started it. The anarchists who created the problem then create a government run by them, an oligarchy, where they have total power. This is exactly what happened in Russia that led to Lenin taking total power, and in Germany, where Hitler's brown shirts created the chaos that brought him to power. But anarchy isn't a stable form of government. It's a quick transition from something that exists to something desired by the power-hungry. It's a temporary condition, and because it isn't permanent, we eliminate it as well. The word democracy comes from two Greek words, demos, meaning people, and kratein, meaning to rule. Democracy, therefore, means the rule of the people, majority rule. This, of course, sounds good, but suppose the majority decides to take away one's home, or business, or children. Obviously, there has to be a limit. The flaw in democracy is that the majority isn't restrained. If more than half the people can be persuaded to want something in a democracy, they rule. What about republic? Well, that comes from the Latin, res meaning thing, and publica meaning public. It means the public thing, the law. A true republic is one where the government is limited by law, leaving the people alone. America's founders had a clean slate to write on. They could have set up an oligarchy. In fact, there were some who wanted George Washington to be their king. But the founding fathers knew history, and they chose to give us the rule of law in a republic, not the rule of a majority in a democracy. Why? Let's demonstrate the difference in the setting of the Old West. Consider a lynch mob in a democracy. 35 horseback riders chase one lone gunman. They catch him, and they vote 35-1 to hang him. Democracy has triumphed, and there's one less gunman to contend with. Now consider the same scenario in a republic. The 35 horseback riders catch the gunman and vote 35-1 to hang him, but the sheriff arrives, and he says, "You can't kill him. He's got his right to a fair trial." So they take the gunman back to town. A jury of his peers is selected, and they hear the evidence and the defense, and they decide if he shall hang. Does the jury even decide by majority rule? No, it has to be unanimous or he goes free. The rights of the government aren't subject to majority rule, but to the law. This is the essence of a republic. Many Americans would be surprised to learn that the word democracy does not appear in the Declaration of Independence or the U.S. Constitution, nor does it appear in any of the constitutions of the 50 states. The founders did everything they could to keep us from having a democracy. James Madison, rightly known as the father of the Constitution, wrote in essay number 10 of the Federalist Papers, "Democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths." Alexander Hamilton agreed, and he stated, "We are a republican government. Real liberty is never found in despotism or in the extremes of democracy." And John Adams, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, stated, "Democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself." The founders had good reason to look upon democracy with contempt, because they knew that the democracies in the early Greek city-states produced some of the wildest excesses of government imaginable. During that period in Greece, there was a man named Solon who urged creation of a fixed body of law not subject to majority whims. But where the Greeks never adopted Solon's wise counsel, the Romans did. Based on what they knew of Solon's laws, they created the 12 tables of the Roman law and, in effect, built a republic that limited government power and left the people alone. Since government was limited, the people were free to produce, with the understanding that they could keep the fruits of their labor. In time, Rome became wealthy and the envy of the world. In the midst of plenty, however, the Roman people forgot what freedom entailed. They forgot that the essence of freedom is the proper limitation of government. When government power grows, people freedom recedes. Once the Romans dropped their guard, power-seeking politicians began to exceed the powers granted them in the Roman Constitution. Some learned that they could elect politicians who would use government power to take property from some and give it to others. Agriculture subsidies were introduced, followed by housing and welfare programs. Inevitably, taxes rose and controls over the private sector were imposed. Soon, a number of Rome's producers could no longer make ends meet, and they went on the dole. Productivity declined, shortages developed, and mobs began roaming the streets demanding bread and circuses from the government. Many were induced to trade freedom for security. Eventually, the whole system came crashing down. They went from a republic to a democracy and ended up with an oligarchy under a progression of the Caesars. Thus, democracy itself is not a stable form of government. Instead, it is the gradual transition from limited government to the unlimited rule of an oligarchy. Knowing this, we as Americans are ultimately left with only two choices. We can keep our republic, as Franklin put it, or we will inevitably end up with an oligarchy, a tyranny of the elite. Just as there is widespread confusion regarding political systems, there is similar confusion in the economic arena. All during the 20th century, Americans were led to believe that there was a great struggle going on between capitalism and the communist world. Undoubtedly, a struggle existed, but the real adversaries were rarely identified properly. No discussion about economic systems will make sense without first defining terms. And one of the most basic terms in economics is capital, whose definition is the means of production. To illustrate what capital is, let's consider a very simple economy. On the sands of a small island, a castaway has just washed ashore. He has no food and he's hungry. He searches the island, he finds no berries, coconuts, or anything edible. He goes back into the water and tries to catch fish with his bare hands, but he fails. So he goes back up on shore and he finds a bush. He breaks off a branch, he gnaws at one end to make a sharp tip. Back into the water he goes, and with his spear, he catches fish. His spear is capital. It's the means of production for catching fish. He gave up some of his time and some of his energy to produce something he could not eat, but something that would help him to produce something that he could eat. Capital, therefore, can be tools, machinery, and even a man's handmade spear to catch fish. Such being the case, consider that the communists in the former Soviet Union, as well as in China and Cuba, have always used tools and machinery. Officials there even view people as capital. Therefore, by strict definition, are not communists capitalists? For that matter, isn't everyone a capitalist? And so, is not every economic system a capitalist system? What then is the difference between what the communist system is and what the American capitalist system is supposed to be? The difference is ownership of the capital. Is the system monopolistic, state-controlled capitalism, or is it competitive, free enterprise capitalism? It is between these two opposing economic systems that a battle has always raged. Before we proceed, let's also define free market. Basically, it's a self-regulating system in which all parties are completely free to transact with one another. But where force, fraud, or injury damages one party, the government's role is only to punish those who commit such offenses and to vindicate the rights of the other party. This protects the integrity of the free market, or free enterprise system, without intervening in it. The term private property also needs clarification, for private ownership and control of property is a key component in the free enterprise system. In order for ownership of property to be full and complete, all four of its aspects must be met. These are title, control, use, and the ability to dispose of what a person owns. In a free market economy, these aspects are unrestrained, so long as the owner does not infringe on the legitimate rights and claims of others. True ownership of property and freedom go hand in hand. They always have. Now let's compare the two systems of capitalism. In the competitive free enterprise system, capital or property is both owned privately and controlled privately. In the monopolistic system, holding title to capital can be accomplished privately or by the state. But more importantly, capital is controlled by the state or by the elite few who control the state. The Communist Manifesto, which contains the basic program for all communists and all socialists, explicitly preaches the destruction and abolition of private property. Karl Marx understood the powers of controlling capital, and so have all communists and socialists who have ever looked and still look to Marx as their leader. State-controlled capitalism results in high prices and low quality. After all, why would a monopoly strive to improve if it has no competition? On the other hand, honest, thrifty, and hardworking producers throughout the world prefer a competitive free enterprise system for all. Here, low prices and high quality prevail because a variety of producers will seek to attract the widest amount of customers. Competition results in excellence and always has. Just as the political spectrum shows the range of government power, we can also plot the various economic systems along another spectrum. These forms of government control in the market stand in sharp contrast with a completely free market. In the last century or so, there have been basically four forms of state-controlled economies, all on the far left of the economic spectrum: fascism, Nazism, socialism, and communism. In each, the government controls the capital. The difference among these is how much is owned or controlled outright by the government. In a fascist system, the government doesn't own businesses on paper, but it does control them. In Mussolini's Italy, even though he didn't hold title to businesses, he told the owners what to produce, how much to produce, when to produce, where to buy raw materials, who to hire, who to fire, and what price to charge. The rest, he said, was up to them. The fascist system is more efficient than other state-controlled systems insofar as those living under it think they still own their businesses. Shopkeepers concern themselves with maintenance on the machinery, employee relations, painting the building, and so forth. But the government controls owners through an array of taxation and regulations. Under Nazism, which means National Socialism, its proponents went one step further and acquired ownership of some corporations such as Volkswagen. However, Hitler didn't seize ownership of other industrial giants, he simply controlled them, just as Mussolini had controlled businesses in Italy. Socialism is where government officials acquire possession of major industries such as transportation, communications, and utilities in order to leverage control over the entire economy. Through ownership of these vital segments of industry and by creating government regulatory agencies, socialists gain control over virtually everything else. Finally, there is communism, the granddaddy of all in the economic sense. In a way, communism is more honest than fascism because all of the capital is owned and controlled by the state. There are no pretenses about it. Now let's combine political and economic systems because ultimately one never exists without the other. We see again that there are only two ultimate choices: a competitive free enterprise system in a republic or a monopolistic state control system under an oligarchy. A moral people have always been a vital element of America's strength. The Founding Fathers well understood the biblical teaching that righteousness exalteth a nation. They also knew that expecting a free market economy and limited government under a republic to endure without morality was expecting the impossible. James Madison cautioned that limited government alone was inadequate for our nation. And John Adams observed, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." George Washington stated, "Reason and experience both forbid us to expect that national morality can prevail in exclusion of religious principle." Yet there are people today who think that liberty is license and that morality is unimportant or irrelevant to politics and economics. But as Benjamin Franklin added, only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters. The alternative to Americanism is what has condemned most of the human race to live as slaves throughout the millennia. It is the idea that rights are privileges dispensed by an oligarchy according to the unlimited rule of men, that the state should control or own the nation's capital with all economic activity directed from a central power, and that morality is inconsequential, and that security is preferred over freedom and opportunity. Our nation continues to be steered off course, and the principles that led to America's greatness are being cast aside. The simple question for us is, do we continue the slide away from our nation's founding principles, or do we return to the kind of government we inherited? Time is running out for Americans who sense that something is wrong. They have to decide what kind of a country we shall leave for future generations. All that is needed is for a sufficient number of Americans to get involved in the fight for freedom and to return our nation to less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world.
Okay, thank you everybody for being part of that. And I just want to say that if you haven't joined the John Birch Society yet, call me. My number is 864-804-0789. You can text me to 864-804-0789. My name's Evan Mulch. We've had a number of people this week join after joining our webinars. It looks like we raised $270, which will be divided into two for both of our speakers as an honorarium. We're just so thankful that Zoe and Lucretia joined us. That was an awesome experience. This is going to be on the Birch podcast. So if you don't listen to the Birch podcast, please download it. If you use iTunes or if you're on a Android, you can actually download the Podomatic app on Android and you can listen to this. I'll have it uploaded tomorrow. If you go to YouTube to Evan Mulch, that's first and last name. Just go to my YouTube page and you can rewatch this video. You can share it with friends. If you're on Facebook, we had at one point we had 48 live viewers watching this. So the video was shared almost 70 times. So we reached a lot of people this evening. Hey, the mainstream media is not going to talk about this. The internet, Facebook controllers, whatever, they censor this stuff, but the way we break through it is through live streaming. So when we do a live stream, which is Tuesday evening at 7 and Thursday evening at 7, I want you to be available to at least share the video. You don't have to watch it. You can have dinner with your family if you want, but please get the word out. And it looks like more money's coming in. So I do need a, everybody's being very generous right now. I mean, this is incredible. Scott Parks, $25. Since Lucretia and Zoe are gone, I'll wave the flag for them. Let's see here. Trying to find anybody we missed. Jerry Swartz, $25. Thank you for your donation. Karen Bumil, $10. Thank you for your donation. Janet Prowl, $50. Wow. So we are going to end up, this is, and I like this because people, everybody that donates, you're getting something out of this. You've realized that you put your money into this. You've seen two of the best speakers in South Carolina and Georgia on the topic of saving our country. Lucretia Hughes, Zoe Warren, two great speakers on this topic, and you've put your money where your mouth is. We no longer just talk without doing the walk. We talk and walk. And one way you can talk and walk is by joining the John Birch Society today. You can go to JBS.org and try to do it. I don't recommend doing it that way because the website is not working the way it should. But you can call me or text me. You can call me this evening or tonight for those of us on the East Coast. You can call me tonight or you can call me tomorrow. You can even text me. My text number is 864-804-0789. Again, that's 864-804-0789. And if all these donations are correct, we just added $100 to that. The total came out to be $370. So 370 divided by 2. Let's see here, 150. So 175. It's 165. Let's see. Okay, let's see. We got more donations coming here. My mind's fuzzy today. I've been on the phone all day. $185. I had it right. I second guessed myself. $185 to each. So we will be sending from the SC Speakers Bureau, $185 to Zoe and $185 to Lucretia. This is all done by you. We appreciate the support. We will be back Tuesday evening of next week with Alex Newman again, popular speaker, great writer. If you haven't read his book, Crimes of the Educators, please go ahead and order it. I guess it's $100 right now, so I guess you may not want to order that, but you can find a lot of his writings by just joining the John Birch Society. He's constantly writing for the New American Magazine, and we will have Kim Fletter with him, and we will be talking about United Nations Agenda 2030. Thanks again for watching. God bless you all.